Hello everyone, I'm TJ the Brickwright and welcome to my Lego room. Today I'm pretty excited because I get to show you guys the first set of instructions I've done in quite a while. I don't think it's the first set of instructions for the year, but it actually could be. 2022 is going by really fast for me. But we're going to be showing you how to build the brand new modified N1 Starfighter using nothing but the parts that you find in the Razor Crest microfighter set. That's this one right here, 75321, this little guy. So it's $10 at the Lego store, or US dollars, obviously, or pretty much anywhere else. I don't really know many places that are selling it for above that, unless it's like one of the secondhand Lego stores. But you can pick this thing up for $10, and you can change it from Mando's first ship to Mando's second ship. Let's do this thing. Alright, for starters, I have a comparison here between the two different ships. So on the left, you see I've got the original set, the Microfighter Razor Crest. It's a pretty good little set as far as microfighters go. It does a good job of representing the Razor Crest. Even has the little, the new stud shooters, which I think work actually quite well. And they don't bother me as much as the original stud shooters, the round ones. So I'm pretty excited to try these out and see how they function, but so far they've worked out pretty well for me. And then obviously on this side, on the right, we have the newer version of what we're going to be trying to build today, which is the modified N1 Starfighter from the Book of Boba Fett. Now, as I get started on this, I do want to let you guys know I had absolutely no intention of ever building a Naboo Starfighter mock, because I'm not that good at building ships that actually exist in Star Wars. I'm better at kind of creating my own. But then very recently, one of my subscribers and contest entrant, Dale, actually sent me a picture of his own version of the N1 Starfighter made just from the Razor Crest pieces, and I got it in my head that I really wanted to try to do it myself. And I thought it was good enough to share with you guys. First things first, we got to take apart the entire build. And just like that, we have the Razor Crest in its current form. Bad joke, I know, I'm sorry. And who actually knew? I mean, if Mando had just stuck around and started gathering the parts of the Razor Crest, he could have totally rebuilt it. But I guess we'll never know. Now, this is the N1 Starfighter taken apart. For those of you who are interested in doing this and picking up the microfighter set, there are a few things you'll need to do. You are going to need the spare parts from the set. Some of the spare parts. You're going to need the 1x1 round plate. You're going to need the cheese wedge in trans black, and then you'll need one of the thruster pieces. And these are all extra pieces, so everything comes directly from the set. But a lot of times when you see people that use existing sets, you'll find that they will use spare parts if they need to. You'll also have extra parts. So this is actually the assemblage of leftover parts that I have from the Razor Crest that we will not be using in this one. Oh, and as a quick note, the instructions for this are up on rebrickable.com. So if you want to, I should have a link in the comments or description down below. If you would like to do that instead of watching the video and watching the tutorial here, then you're more than welcome to do that. Okay, first things first, we're going to start with a 2x4 brick, and we're going to add some brackets to it. So we're going to put 2 brackets in the center of the build, and then the other 2 brackets we're going to put next to those. Interestingly enough, if you build the actual Razor Crest microfighter, it's pretty close in build order from my instructions to whoop. It's pretty close in the instructions from the build order in the set to what I have in these alternate instructions. Then we're going to add this big old bracket on here. I'm actually shocked at how well this turned out. I saw what Dale had done, and it was actually really impressive how he had completely taken the exact same pieces and just changed it up. I didn't think it was going to be as easy as it turned out to be. I quite enjoyed designing it, and I ended up redesigning it about 3 or 4 different times before I got it to where I really felt comfortable sharing it with everybody. Because sometimes I finish something and I look at it and I go, you know what, it's just not quite ready. And that's been the case with a few of the sets, including the one I was going to talk about today, which was the array repulsor from the Gallagher contest. I was hoping to have that done and buttoned up today, but with the move and then with a couple of issues that I've been having with that particular build, I ended up not being able to show it to you guys. But it is on its way. It's just going to take a little bit extra time, and I hope you can forgive me. I'm sure a lot of you are like, well, I don't really know why you're giving out the instructions for the Gallagher contest, because we don't even know what it's for yet. So maybe I need to preface that build when that comes out with what we're actually going to be using them for. But then when I saw this, I started working on it, and it just worked out to be able to get this video done for you guys today. So we're going to stick that guy on the bottom, and then we're going to add a couple of the slopes on here, one right there, and then we're actually going to put one of these plates on the bottom. Now, interestingly enough, and I don't think I did a good job of this in the instructions, is when you put this on, you're actually going to place it sideways, and that's going to help hold everything together. And the reason I do that is just because there aren't a lot of pieces in the set that can tie things together. So I figured that would be a good compromise to help hold those brackets on. And it worked out pretty well, I must admit. So then we're going to take another one of those fancy modified tiles, and we're going to stick it on like that. Then we've got these corner plates, and we're going to stick it on like so. This actually was the part that I started with when I was trying to build this creation, is I actually started with the very front because I wanted to know if it was possible to get some angles on there. And it totally worked, which was a little shocking. It was a surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one. I am actually following the instructions on my computer here so that I can try to build it in the same way that you'd be building it if you use the instructions over on Rebrickable. I thought it would be a good way to make sure... Oh, look, I grabbed the totally wrong piece there. I thought it'd be a good way to make sure that it works, and if you're following along at home, you can totally see how it all goes together, and maybe this will clarify the instructions a little bit, kind of like this bottom piece. But thankfully, this set, or this mock, only has 31 steps in the instructions. So it's actually not that bad, in my opinion. And I wouldn't be surprised if a bunch of people have already done this at home and just not put up instructions or something, because this actually wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be. I may have to make this a recurring theme in the Lego room here, or the YouTube channel, just coming up with alternate builds for stuff. Although this one really was inspirational. Dale did a fantastic job with his original version, and I don't think I really kept many of the designs that he used. I ended up finding my own pathway to getting the N1 Starfighter, but that's all right. So here comes some really fun parts, is these side pieces, because again, it just shocked me how well they just went right on there and fit. But there are a couple fun little tricks here that I thought worked really well. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think we want to probably do both sides on this. Yeah, that's what the instructions show. So we'll do both sides of the Microfighter, Naboo Starfighter here. Get both of these panels on. I think I discovered that it was a little harder to get these on the further on in the build you go, but you also don't want to do it too early. There's a balancing act when you're making instructions for stuff like this. But good news is we get to do the next part, which is super fun, and that's the double cheese wedges here. So they'll sit like that. This front one only sits on one single stud, but it actually holds it quite well, especially when you get a minifigure in there. It sits just about perfectly, and there will be some other stuff in here that helps hold it in place. But then when you put these next ones on, if you look at it from the top, it actually has a little bit of a bulge out, which the Naboo Starfighter actually has. And when that was kind of a happy accident, but also somewhat deliberate, because I was trying to find a way to make these go together, and it totally worked. And I'm really happy with the shaping of it, especially from above. I mean, from the side it's not bad, but from above especially, it worked out quite well. I'm very happy with it. Well, we are actually running out of video on my camera, so let's speed this thing up, right? Get to it, TJ. Okay, so next we're going to put on the launchers. In the instructions, Stud.io does not have these new launchers yet, but Rubricable does, and Bricklink does, and all those places. So you'll be able to get those, and obviously if you get the Razor Crest Microfighter, it's pretty obvious what goes there. And then we got our little control panel. I really do like these control panels. They're quite pretty. Now we're going to build the engines. Now the engines are going to be one of those parts that I did have to compromise a bit because of the lack of pieces. So we're just going to stick those two together, and then on the bottom of them we put 2 plates, and then one of these 1x1 round plates in black. And then on the top we're going to grab another plate and then this jumper and put our exhaust right on that. Then we're only going to put a pin in one of those engines, and that sticks right on there. And unfortunately that means these engines can tilt, but again, that's a restriction because of the parts I had available, not because I cheaped out on the design. I just want everybody to realize that. So there is a little bit of tweaking that can happen with it, but they still stay on just fine. So we'll build our second engine right here, which does not take very long at all because I've built this multiple times. It's more about just trying to make sure I'm following the instructions to some degree, which is why it might be taking a little bit longer. All right, got that on. And stick it in there, and there we go. We are super close to being done. You could actually stick Mando in there right now if you wanted. He's gonna get in there and test the engines, make sure they're working. You got that there, bud? One thing I do like to do whenever I put him in there, if you look down inside, there's a flat section and then the studded section. He fits a lot better if it's all studded, but I lose a lot of structural integrity if I put a different piece down inside there. So what I end up doing is I stick him in there, but then I lean him back so he's touching this back round piece there, and then it actually holds him in just a little bit better. He just likes that little bit of extra tension from behind. Okay, then the next part of the instructions is the tail and rear engine. So this is a little bit simpler, but it was the biggest rebuild that I did of the entire ship, was to try to get that third engine. So we just take that jumper, put one each of those round plates on there, and stick that jumper in that back piece. And that's the beginning. That's our third engine, and then we just have to finish our tail, which I ended up using both of these, I call them BB-8 heads, but I know they use them for porgs, and I think they're officially referred to as cones. But I stick a pin in one side, and while it's not super tight in there like it would be if it was a Technic piece, it actually has quite a bit of friction. And then we stick the other one on the other side, and then you just pop it on that black round plate there, and you're good to go. I originally had that plate on the back end here to extend it a little bit, but when I remembered the third engine, which is funny, I mean, one of the main characteristics of the new N1 Starfighter is that it has a third engine, and I totally forgot that it did until I was done, and I'm like, I'm going to start making instructions. And then I had to rebuild the whole thing to get that third engine in there. But that black piece ended up having to be put on the front because there's a little bit of overhang from those BB-8 droid heads. And in order to make sure that it didn't interrupt each other or get in each other's way, I had to put that plate on, but I think it worked out just fine. The actual spike on the back of Mando's modified N1 has those little greebles and those skeletonized bits, and so I thought it actually worked out pretty good the way that it turned out. So again, my favorite way to look at it is from the top because it just works so well. And then from the side, obviously it works pretty good, not the greatest, but it's all right. And then from the bottom, it's absolutely terrible. I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. From the front, it looks really good. You kind of get that downward sloping towards the engines, which I was really trying to capture. You've got the slope at the front end that I did try to have that other slope on here, but structurally it caused some problems. So this is the most structurally sound version of it that I have found so far. But there you go. There's your modified N1 Starfighter for Mando. And as one last little trick before we end, in the last few seconds, you can actually take this whole section off. Make sure that plate stays there. Stick your jumper plate on, and if you have a little Grogu, you can stick him on the back, and now Grogu and Mando have a place to fly and a place to go. So, unfortunately, my camera is going to cut out any second now, but I will leave this on screen as long as possible. Thank you so much for hanging out in TJ's Lego Room. Once again, the instructions for this build are on Rubricable, and they are free, so you're welcome, Galaxy. And until we see you next time in the Lego Room, play well. Bye. I want to send a special thanks to my patrons, Frankie, TJ, Michael, Mustafarian, and Tantan. You guys are awesome, and you guys really help me keep things going over here in the Lego Room. I really appreciate everything you guys do, and for those of you who aren't able to subscribe on Patreon, I want to thank you for watching the videos, and especially my subscribers. I've got to 4,500 subscribers, and I want to thank my 4,500th subscriber, Josh. Thank you so much for subscribing, and we'll catch you next time.